So I want to start off with asking, how many of you have a first name? Nice. How many of you have named someone before, whether that be a child, a dog? Yeah, wow, okay, a lot of you. So whether you have been named or gone through the process of naming someone, someone has decided a name for someone else. So people often choose names that they think sound beautiful, or maybe they name them after someone they love or admire. But it's interesting to think that something that someone else chose for ourselves lets other people make decisions about who we are. So sometimes names are even chosen before we are born, but we need to live with the consequences. So we can see this between our two new students at a school. So here we have Aisha, and in this geographically ambiguous place, her name is very common. She's even named after a celebrity. Whereas our second student, Francine, has a name that has never been heard before in this place. So immediately, Aisha starts to make friends. She immediately becomes very popular, whereas Francine does not have the same response. And there's no difference between how these two students introduced themselves. They just walked in, said their name, and sat down. So what could be causing the difference? Oh, it works. Okay, but yeah, so there's so many Aishas, but no Francines when you type it in. So Francine starts struggling socially, and no one's approaching her. She used to be very popular in her old school, but not so much anymore. But just by being there, just by saying her name over and over and over again, and by continuously repeating and being there, people start to approach her more positively. And this is due to the mere exposure effect, where just a few more instances of being there and present will make names more familiar and then more attractive. So Francine starts to settle into school and everything's okay. So her and Aisha start to apply to jobs. So Aisha, the night before, just grabs her old resume. She's feeling confident. She just working on her hair. Whereas Francine, on the other hand, spends many hours working on her CV, and she's a very big overachiever. She has many extracurriculars, and she just goes off on it. So how many people think Francine is a better candidate? How many people think Aisha is a better candidate? Yeah, so it's interesting to think sometimes things don't always go as we think. So Aisha may have gotten the job, and in a study done by Kang et al., it's proven that in Western societies, this is just an example, in the US, people who had Western names were more likely to get jobs than people who had African American names, even if it was the exact same CV and they just changed the name, which is very interesting, and this was seen across a lot of cultures. So this might be a later problem for a lot of us, jobs, that's if I get there. But it could also affect your GPA. So people whose names start with A or B are proven to have statistically higher GPAs than those whose letters, the letters of their first name, go to lower alphabets. So this seems kind of crazy, but it's because Aisha is very driven, whereas Francine finds it very hard to focus. And this seems like a pretty crazy claim. How can your GPA be set by the person who named you? But it has been shown that no matter how hard people study or how driven they are, there is differences in how people are driven. And this is due to the fact that when you first learn your name, your parents are probably very positively reinforcing it. And when you're going to school, the first thing they want you to know is your name. So you start learning how to spell your name, and you start to learn with the first letter. So if the first letter of your name is an F for Francine, she starts to have these positive correlations with the letter F. And throughout your whole life, you seek these letters. Therefore, people with the letter A, the first name, so Aisha, would actually have more drive implicitly to do better and get higher grades. So again, this is very implicit. This is something you're not conscious of, but it also works for the people who are employers or people who are looking for people, or maybe even the people that grade you. So even if someone is a better candidate, they may not be seen that way, but by understanding that we have implicit biases, because an implicit bias is when your beliefs and your actions kind of don't correlate or they don't match. But when we're made aware of these things, we can change it. And luckily for us, we have the self-serving bias. So this is the tendency to see yourself in a more positive light. So when people are told, oh, like you're being unfair, like this isn't right, you know, like maybe Francine was a much, much better candidate, people are proven to have done better and to actually judge candidates for their true value. So at the end of the day, my name is Maraam. That's a very uncommon name. It starts with M, which is a lot lower than F. But I'm still here before you today. I made it a little, talking to my friends who I have. And that has nothing to do with my name. So you don't have to name your child Aisha. Just teach them how to spell apples first. Thank you.